when I was with the Houston Texans, and the Houston Astros were playing the San Francisco Giants, and then they played the Arizona Diamondbacks, and were able to go take batting practice. And when I tell you we were going, and guys were preparing for it a week and a half in advance, and you don't realize how hard it is. Mind you, we were in the top 0.5% of conditioned athletes in the whole wide world, and how hard it is to get, knock one out. And the funny thing about it is Junior Spivey and Tony Womack was like, actually, you need to swing a little bit, not so hard and not so much viciousness. It's all timing, and was able to, kind of just muscle one out. But I'm going to tell you, of all the teammates that I've had or that were there, the guy that could really hit the baseball was David Carr.
Is that right?
He grew up playing.
Yep.
His dad had played, at some level of Major League Baseball, and David was a phenomenal athlete. He hit one to 403 there, so left center field easily over in Minute Maid Park. So, anyways, it's a great day down here, and it's been a great day of things here with some local flavor. Real quick, Nick, obviously, I was able to get an up close and personal look of one of the new recruits for commit from Nebraska. I think it's Jamal Rule.
That's right.
So essentially, there's a little bit of history there, right? Jamal Rule, not just playing. Down in Charlotte, I will tell you, for Husker fans out there, and he's like, oh, he's only, here's what you do. You get Husker fans saying, oh, we're only going after 4-star recruits or 5-star recruits, and we need to recruit local. Then you got some Husker fans that say, well, our new running back, we need to get a 5-star recruit, and then Jamal Rule is a 3-star recruit. I will tell you this, from a very good source who happens to be a coach that goes against him, has been going against them since he's been, in middle school. It's like he was the only problem that they would face last year in North Carolina as far as, in the high school ranks. And he's a big kid. He's a really good athlete. And he's a really good kid. So, Nebraska might have got a steal out of Charlotte Christian High School.
That's where I was having the conversation earlier today regarding the Nebraska recruiting class. And a big theme this year, and it has been in years past, has been Nebraska's been early on some guys. And I think that's a big case with Jamal Rule, right? Yeah. I think that they were EJ Barthel and the staff was very, very quick and early on identifying Jamal Rule as somebody that they maybe wanted to pursue the same way that they were with CJ Bernal, the former commit who's now going to Florida. But they've done that. And you know how it is, Jay, and you can probably speak to it a little bit more than I can, is that so a Power 5 school offers or shows interest, and then a couple of other schools show up to the party. And then you get, that's then the recruiting sites show up to the party. And so you can't, I think, hang everything on the recruiting rankings.
No.
And that it truly at the end of the day does matter about the staff's ability to identify talent.
Yeah. And it goes both ways, right? I mean, Georgia is right now shopping. It's Georgia, Ohio State, Penn State, the normal, schools that you would think of are shopping at a different place. And it's a different type of 5-star athlete or 4 that they're looking, and they're able to just essentially go down the street and get a plethora of athletes that they can recruit that want to stay home. But also, I think when you're a staff that is willing to go and take shots at guys like whether it's Jamal Rule or any other CJ or any high ranking corner or running back or safety, linebacker, lineman, it's built through relationships. Secondly, that Nebraska, I think this staff has gotten increasingly more confident in what Nebraska football is and the type of Nebraska football they're out.
What they're selling,
right? Yeah. You kind of know it when you get here, but then once you start to get ingrained, you're here 2 years, and now you know what it means, and now you know what the advantages are. You're also able to take the landscape of some of your opponents in guys that you're recruiting against, right? And then also you have a better idea of what type of athlete maybe that you should be looking at in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And also how fast or how slow you can, project the maturity process and ability or project ability to get on the field. And whether it's very early, which would potentially be a 4 or 5-star recruit, 3-star recruit, depending on the situation and position group, or you match up a development guy with maybe a more senior laden experienced group through the transfer portal and guys that have played before. So I think they're finding their way, slowly but surely. And I think as the beginning of June or the end of May or maybe right after spring ball, you heard people complaining, oh well, we don't have a big a class, and then they had the 7-on-7 event, which was great, and then you saw the benefit of it, maybe a week or two later, and then you start to continue to get a guy or two committed, throughout the month of June, and then you get a little bit of break, and then you start to play real football, and then you're thinking about game day visits and get them to experience in real time the thing that you've been selling to them all off season, and obviously through the unofficial and official visits through June. So, you the star ranking, and you either make it, but you validate it, right? So if say you're a 4-star recruit, you come in and you play, prepare, act like a 4-star recruit, or you outkick your assumptive of 2, 3, and maybe low 4-star recruit that you're better than what you originally ranked. And sometimes I think I'll take an example here of a guy that Scott Frost and staff recruited, Ernest Hausman from Columbus, Nebraska, right? I think originally he was a wide receiver corner, I think, or a safety. Then he moved to linebacker, very raw, but his star ranking was based on primarily where he's at in his experience. What they weren't able to project is his willingness to learn, his want to, and his growth ability. So where he's got bigger, faster, stronger. He's obviously playing really well up in Michigan. And
is he an NFL guy?
Maybe that's stupid
question, but
I think all the tangibles, like as far as size, strength, speed, sure. And I think he's played better every single year. And I think if he continues to go on the path that he's going, and also Michigan plays good defense like they've been playing, and Michigan gets, say up to that 8 to 10 win mark, for sure. I know he'll probably run well. And also I think the appealing thing of a guy like Ernest Hausman, or like some of the guys out in Nebraska that don't have a lot of experience, but have kind of waited their turn and then gradually have gotten better, is they still have room to hit their ceiling. I think now with guys overtraining in high school, really, really peaking at an earlier time, and so it's always kind of the same thing, right? You don't see guys get better from the first to second year, big jump to second to third, and then really cherry on top of your fourth year. Is that when you look at Ernest Hausman, or you look at some of these other guys that have gotten drafted, you'd like to see some potential of growth there, and that's what makes them appealing at the next level.
I also would go out on a limb and say I don't think Nebraska's done yet this weekend. I think there's a couple of prospects out there that are nearing a decision. We saw today, Nayland Scott, a 4-star wide receiver, flipped from Arizona State to Nebraska. There's other guys. Larry Miles is a guy that kind of, I wouldn't say is on commit watch, but is certainly trending the Huskers' way. And there is a guy in, I'm going to try not to butcher his name, Cloud. It's spelled Mpouma is his last name. He's an offensive tackle that's committing on Monday at 5 p.m. And I know a mutual friend of ours, closer with you, Greg Smith of Rivals, a national guy, talked about how Auburn and Nebraska are kind of the two teams to watch there for Cloud on Monday. And so I think like Nebraska, I cautioned Husker fans earlier this morning on the drive when I was talking to AD and Raph about it, of like, don't get so infatuated with the quantity. Look at the quality of it.
Yeah, and I think look, man, it's a I wouldn't say a weird year, but I think it's a really good year that you got a ton of power forward talent right here in the state. Couple offensive linemen, not as many as they're bringing in from out of the state, but really skill position athletes are just galore. Linebackers, and majority of them are going outside of the state lines in Nebraska, but they're really, really confident in what they see and how they evaluate, and they want to get the right guys, because I think also people are focusing primarily on high school guys right now, as they should. But also I think the staff knows there's a golden number of transfer portal guys that you're going to try to have to attack every year and try to get every year. That's just the way the college football is kind of morphed into. And so you have to marry that with the high school kids that you're getting, right? So you can't have a whole bunch of developmental guys. You got to get a good mix of guys that need to develop for a year or two. get in your program, get coached up, get bigger, faster, stronger. But then also you got to really hit on the guys that you expect instant return on investment from.
Well, and it's felt okay. I think offensive line is a really good example here because remember when Matt Rule got here the first year? I mean, they leaned heavy into a lot of bodies out of high school. It was Sam Sledge, Grant Bricks. I mean, you go down the list of guys that they really wanted to lean towards the developmental piece of it, and they're still doing that. There's a couple of offensive linemen that they're targeting, and Claude is one of them on Monday night that's going to be committing to somewhere.
Yeah.
But so they're still targeting some pieces. But I think like that's a really good point of that. Now it might just be more so of in the current age of college football. I'm not saying you pick and choose, but you can be a little more selective if you're consistent in what you're building.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that your guys that you need to mature at a later point can really fill in the gaps, so you don't have to go all high school offensive linemen.
Yeah.
But I also think from the year 1 to now, which is year 3, college football has changed twice.
Yeah.
Since then for the staff, and so that's why maybe you see a little bit of change in recruiting and the number of guys, and you got to really look at the quantity or quality versus quantity. And also, I think the recruiting period, the recruiting process is longer, but the commitment process is quicker and shorter. There's a lot more pressure on high school kids to really have a detailed plan in the offseason of, 7-on-7 or offense and defensive line camps. They're doing their high school team camps, and then they're hitting the circuit. They're taking 2 or 3 week trips of going, hitting regions of the country, seeing coaches, getting offers. Then you got to start thinking about, if you're high enough ranked, think about where and when you're going to commit at the end of June, July, or primarily before the end of summer. Because on top of it, with the new ruling, now these kids that are committed or going into their senior year, they can get offers in August. And so now it's a business. Now it's business on both sides. And so I think it's really sped up the process, but you also want to make sure you do a lot of your homework to see if they fit, see if they're not going to just be one and done, that they understand their role, but then also they have a role kind of carved out for them as long as things go well on the player side.
That's what I was going to say is it feels like everything's abbreviated now because you mentioned like game day visits and things like that. A lot of, for the guys that are going to be playing their senior years this fall in high school, that Nebraska, for the 2026 guys, I guess that would be a better way to put it, is a lot of their visits that mean the most come in March and come in June, like you said, with 7-on-7 camps. Game day visits for this season, it feels like it's a really, really meaningful for the 2027 guys.
Yeah, as much as you're focused on 26 right now, and obviously we're in the 25 season, right?
Yeah.
You're fast forwarding to 27 during the football season, because you got to think the guys that are going to commit in December are already in football season. Very rarely will you be able to get down to a game unless you have a bye week. So I think the strategy and also the aggressiveness has to match up with the process of the school and the player, and then obviously the commitment process as well.
How difficult is it, and how important is it for individual programs, not even just Nebraska-centric here, but individual programs to be consistent in everything with the stuff that they can control when everything around them that they can't control is so inconsistent?
I think one of the things that I heard a coach say, and it might have been Matt Rule, but it's like you have to be emotionally invested with all the guys that are on your team.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to coach them like they're there for 10 years, which is only 5. And you have to do that year by year. It's almost reset. It was like, what was the movie? 40 First Dates?
Yeah.
And so that's it.
50.
Or 50 First Dates. And it has to be like that because, I think Fred Hoiberg said it is like you could do everything that you could make all the promises or here's what we could do for you and hit all the check marks. And as soon as the season's over, they'll walk in and say, man, I'm going somewhere else. And so you can't really take it personal as long as you hold up your end of the bargain, and things change, right? And here's how things can change. You could come in and have a beeline to either starting spot or some reps. Mm-hmm. Well, somebody else along that developmental process a year or two prior has really stepped forward and started to progress maybe at a better rate than you. And then you have to be willing to stay and stick it out and compete and go and take people's, reps or minutes or whatever you want to call it, and not think they need to be grandfathered to you. And that's where some guys can get in the portal and then constantly be portal kids, or the situation changes, right? You could somehow fall into, you got Jay Foreman here and Lawrence Taylor, comes in the portal. Well, you got to understand there's the difference between Jay Foreman and Lawrence Taylor is a big range in athletic ability and playmaking ability, and you got to understand where you're at. And it's a hard thing to do for a coach because we're talking about high school kids right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the transfer portal kids towards the end of the season, and then obviously JUCO season. But the guys that you have to really work hard to recruit are the guys that are on your team right now.
Yeah.
It used to be 3 or 4 years ago that you just got to re-recruit them around early signing period and secondary signing period, especially after the spring, right? Now, Nick, I would envision if I'm a position coach, I got to talk to every single one. I would assume I'd have to talk to every one of my single player, or check in with my players once or twice a month. They might not be long conversations.
I was going to say, what does that look like? Because obviously you've been in that. And we always do this like blanket statement of like, oh, you got to re-recruit the roster. We as casual fans, we have this habit of basically just saying things that we hear, but not really knowing what they mean.
Right.
Which they can be accurate, right? Like the whole recruit the roster thing, I think is a perfect example because we all know every coach has to do it, but we don't know what that looks like. Like so like in this moment in August, as the season gets started, how do you do this like re-recruiting thing without even a game under your belt of that season?
Not much right now. You locked and loaded now.
Yeah.
Right. So there's not a lot of movement. But during the off season, whether it's early signing period, official visits, unofficial visits, transfer portal, late transfer portal guys, grad transfers, re-recruiting is no different, than recruiting. Some guys are really high maintenance that you got to call. They really think feel in love is that you got to call them every single day. As just I wouldn't say high maintenance, but they just like the constant, confirmation that they're wanted and needed. Or there's guys that you got to read. Okay, hey Nick, what's going on? School good, family life good, we good. How's the the weight room going? X, Y, and Z. Now I will say the rules have changed that where they're around the players more, so you can take the pulse of your team a little bit more, or position group a little bit more, just like broad based, right? So I see my linebackers more than say like when I was in college or even after that, where there wasn't a lot of off-season interaction with the position coaches outside of spring ball. Now they kind of are able to do some stuff on the field and see them, and then obviously you can FaceTime and do stuff that we weren't able to do. So it's really when you talk about re-recruiting your roster, it's no different than when I was in the NFL and they happened to draft a linebacker that I thought maybe was potentially in my spot or signed a guy. You want to know where you stand. And I like the guys that are going to go in and say, okay, I want to know exactly where I stand and can I compete for my job? Because I like guys that think as long as the competition, I can win.
Yeah.
And so that's really what you want.
I know we're up against the break here, but I think that's really interesting just because the coaches have to play this game also of like, is the juice worth the squeeze at the end of the day as well? Like after seasons of you talked about high maintenance guys. It's like, okay, is the juice worth the squeeze this is going to sound worse than I mean it, to basically put up with it?
Well, I mean,
because it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of energy for one guy.
These guys are professional athletes, whether you like it or not. And you see it. You've seen it in the NFL for guys that could still play late in their career, but then teams haven't signed them because it isn't worth it.
Yeah.
You could look at maybe Shedeur Sanders with the media stuff. I think there was probably more of a memo sent out amongst owners that they're going to try to humble him a little bit. But one of the things was like all the stuff that comes with you. And so, you got to make sure that you are worth the squeeze. And the best way to make sure that you're worth it is when you're out there playing, or when you're in the stadium, you're working as hard as you can. You're doing the extra stuff. You're not just doing what's required. You're not missing your meals. You're not missing team meetings. And yes, you want some pushback from your players. Yeah. I think that's good in every single sport. But you want to make sure you're dependable and able to step up to the challenge. And then when you bring a big issue or you need to get re-recruited, that coach or coaches are like, you know what? Yes, I see his point. Do we like to hear it right now? He has some credibility and he has, some long-standing longevity and production. We can deal with it.
I promised I wasn't laughing or giggling at you, but hey, so this Fargo so Salt Dogs tonight playing at 7:05 p.m. against the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks, and Fargo right now is taking infield work. The coach hit it off with a temporary mound, hit the ball. He's hitting ground balls in the infield. Was trying to hit one to second baseman. the temporary mound that's in front of the actual pitcher's mound, he drilled a baseball off of the corner. It came back, hit him in the face.
Ooh.
And so, give kudos to the coach who's wearing a pretty sweet sweatband over the forehead. It's a hot one out here. But it caught me off guard because I'm watching these guys take infield work, and all of a sudden this coach swings one as hard as he can. It drills off the temporary mound that's about 15 feet in front of him, comes back, drills him in the face. He had to take a moment to catch his breath. So.
Yeah, toughness. He's old school tough. Yeah, and he's not bleeding, so he's pretty tough.
Good.
So, anyways, we're up against the break. Jay Foreman, Nick Sainer sticking in old school to new school way. Quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Old School with Jay Foreman and Austin Orman. Download the mobile app and listen wherever you are on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services is here to help you protect things that are most important to you. Whether it's your home, your family, or your future, Jack Russell has the proven experience to get the job done while developing authentic relationships with you. Give Jack a call today at 402-421-9100. Again, that's 402-421-9100. Or visit one of his 2 locations in Lincoln or Seward and learn how you can excel in the complicated world of insurance. Jack Russell of Farm Bureau Financial Services, a trusted and well-respected representative since 1999.
What do you look for when searching for a plumbing company? Integrity, positive customer reviews? Are they insured and fully licensed? How about a company that has all 3? Deals Plumbing in Lincoln is your go-to certified plumbing company that can help you fix anything from leaks to clogs, water heaters, and more. Give Deals Plumbing a call today at 402-525-7311, or you can visit Deals Plumbing online at dealsplumbing.com.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Now's the best time to lock in early order savings on a new John Deere planter from Landmark Implement during the early order program. Plan for success with the latest technology, including Exact Emerge high-speed planters that help you cover more acres with greater precision and productivity. Order your planter for next year now to unlock the biggest savings of the season. Contact your local Landmark location today and experience the Landmark difference.
Hi, my name is Molly Party. I'm a realtor with MP Dodge Real Estate. I'm a newly licensed agent and considered numerous brokerages before deciding on MP Dodge. I chose the company that gives me the most support in my new career, plus guidance and encouragement along the way. MP Dodge has a unique mentoring program for new agents. It's helped jumpstart my career and has a supportive management team and administrative staff. So if you're contemplating a career in real estate, look no further than MP Dodge. It will be the best decision you make.
Play ball! Haymarket Park is buzzing with excitement this summer. Grab your crew and get in on the fun. Be sure to catch all the daily specials and promotions this season, like Thirsty Thursday, Fireworks Friday, Souvenir Saturday, Family Fun Day Sunday, plus special events and discounts all summer long. Don't miss out on the action as the Lincoln Salt Dogs take on their biggest rivals and knock the ball out of the park. Visit saltdogs.com and see this week's promotions and grab your tickets.
Are you looking for an exciting new way to put your skills to work? Explore new career options in the fintech industry at Currency, a Sandhills global company. We offer full-time positions in financial sales, compliance, operations, and other fields. We also offer a 4.5-day work week, an attractive benefits package, and opportunities for advancement. Put your motivation to work and grow with us at Currency. Visit gocurrency.com/careers to learn more.
93.7 The Ticket, Fox, KFXL weather. Sponsored by John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
We are going to be dealing with the heat here over the next several days. Looks like we'll see plenty of sunshine for our Friday, all the way up to 94 for a high temperature with a light southeast wind. Tonight, only dropping down to 71 for a low. Sunny and 96 tomorrow before a chance of thunderstorms on Sunday and a high of 95. I'm meteorologist Aaron Dowden for 93.7 The Ticket and ticketfm.com.
Mike, the insurance company wants us to replace the roof.
Wait, what? I thought everything was fine.
Yeah, it says right here our roof is too old and they won't be able to cover us anymore.
I guess it is 15 years old. Hi, I'm Austin with Roofing Service Company. We help homeowners with their roofing and siding projects. Financing options are available, and we can get you under a new roof no time at all. If this sounds like you, visit roofingservicecompany.com. That is roofingservicecompany.com.
Rashawn Jackson here for Bauer Infrastructure, a veteran-owned local company proudly serving Lincoln, Lancaster County, and the surrounding areas. Bauer provides quality work at an affordable price, and they're growing rapidly. If you want to experience a career with a fast-paced, family-friendly environment, visit BauerInfrastructure.com. They have top-of-the-line benefits, year-round work, even through the winter. Bauer, usher in the new era of infrastructure to an area near you. And as always, go Big Red.
Back to Old School with Foreman and Orman on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We're back here. It's Old School. Nick Sander Jay's figuring out the headset. We switched headsets because we couldn't hear you good enough in the first segment. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, we're good there.
Yeah.
We're good now. We had to switch up headsets, but we're good.
Yeah, I usually like the thing to be on the right side, but I'll make an adjustment for you.
Well, you can flip it over. You want me to?
No, it's all right. It's good.
That's all right.
It's all good in the hood, man. But we had a good segment talking about recruiting and the process of it. And I think really, to put a bow on it, all the stuff sounds good. It sells subscriptions and all that stuff for the recruiting services. People listen to us when we talk about it, but I think the players make their star and make the people that evaluate them right or wrong. And, that's all that really matters. And so moving forward, you had the NBA draft last night. Obviously,
can I say something on top of that recruiting thing? I think not to cross over to sports, but you mentioned something about Fred Hoiberg in the last segment. I think a great example is Jamarcus Lawrence. What Jamarcus said a couple of days ago regarding just his what he wanted to do and why he left initially, but then also he specifically said, I didn't want to burn bridges. I didn't burn bridges on the way out of here.
Right.
And it actually helped out to where it allowed him to then eventually come back.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, this is a business, and I think one of the things you do is you always got to make sure you play the game within the game. It's look, I always say, coaches or people in power in sports, they're probably the most pettiest, people out there, and coaches are gonna be around a lot longer than players, and they all talk, and they all talk whether it's good or bad because they were all looking out for each other. It's no different than an employee going from one business to another, and the two owners know each other. They want to know what type of employee or player that you are, what type of teammate you are, because they want to make sure as they invest in you, it's a good investment, and as you want them to invest in you. So I think it's a good job by Jamarcus to understand. Look, he had to go and try to spread his wings, and he wanted to make sure he could play as much as possible. Now the position and the minutes and the possibility come back is probably a better match for him, and so it was less risk that he took leaving and able to come back. And plus that that lets you know that relationship with him and the Nebraska coaching staff was always a good relationship, and so that's good. Those are the stories, Nick, that you don't get a lot of on the internet. You always hear about, a coach lied to me, or I didn't get my NIL money, or I went there and I hate it and I'm trying to go somewhere else and get some revenge. So we'll see what happens. But a lot like recruiting, whether it's, coming and going in good relationships, guys were getting drafted the last 2 nights in the NBA, which is crazy now. The NBA saw the NFL spread their draft out to 3 days. Yeah. Now they're doing 2 rounds in 2 days. I understand it. You want your first round guys to have all the, kudos and loves that they can get, but the second round has some good players. First, I want to say this, Nick, is that whether they were drafted, from Creighton, and obviously we have, Tanji from Wisconsin, but he's from Omaha. We had all the local legendary high school kids from Bellevue West and Miller North get picked up. Just talk about the impact of that on the local sports and obviously the basketball community to see guys that everybody would have still talk about the show that they put on at PBA for those 2 years when you knew it was always going to be Miller North against Bellevue West, Chucky Hebron and company getting their shot in the NBA.
Well, I think to John Tanji's the surprise out of the crew that made it to where he is. He starts his career obviously at Colorado State, and I want to say he was an Ali Farokhmanesh recruit, who's now the head coach. He moved into that head coaching role once Nico Medved took the Minnesota job. But I think you're right. It's really, really cool because it was always going. I mean, we always knew it was Hunter Salas and that really, really impressive Miller North squad going up against now what is a Bellevue West legend,
right,
in Chucky Hepburn, and even throughout college, like we talked about it, and we talked about them, and we always talk about how with football and with that sport, Husker fans keep tabs on them. We've kept pretty close eyes on those three. On John, whether Tanji was injured down at Missouri, right? But after he transferred from Colorado State to Mizzou, then transfers from Mizzou to Wisconsin, whether it's Chucky Hepburn going from Wisconsin to Louisville, and then obviously Hunter Salas and his couple of stops there from whether it was Gonzaga then to Wake Forest. Like, we always kept eyes.
Right.
And that shows that they were pretty polarizing as high school athletes.
Right.
And there was no – you can say all the ill will you want and the people booing when Chucky would be here for a conference game, but at the end of the day, it didn't really feel like there was a whole lot of ill will. Like, there was a lot of support.
Yeah, there was more support than non-support, and people are going to boo no matter where you're at. And as an athlete, as a big-time athlete, you should only expect to get welcomed back home with some boos because they want to beat you. Now, I don't know what the situation was, why they chose other places to go than Nebraska, but I think it worked out for everybody. I think Nebraska's program has kind of progressed in a positive fashion, and I think Chucky Hepburn going to Wisconsin. Look, I said this from the get-go. At that point of Wisconsin's basketball program, that fit Chucky Hepburn coming out of high school.
It did.
Leader, defense, hit open shots, and then he morphed into more of a scorer. Hunter Salas was a top 50 recruit. And at that time, Gonzaga could be a national recruiting power. So you go there, then you have to go other places. You can't forget about St. Thomas, who kind of came after that.
That's right.
And then you got to think you have a local other guy Tanji, who was kind of in that same time in that era, but more under the radar.
Well, frankly, his high school team
wasn't
as good.
Not as good.
Yeah.
But he was on the radar. And he's like, oh yeah, he's going. Is he really that good?
Yep.
And he really, really progressed, and they're all getting opportunities. St. Thomas is getting an opportunity as well. And you got Ryan Kolkbrenner from Creighton, who I've met, and who's a huge human being that came back, and he's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, and arguably the best basketball conference in the nation. And so he's going to get his shot to prove people wrong or prove himself right. But I think the local flavor of it is really, really good. I think it's good for the local high schools and the local kids that are able to go on to college and understand that when you want to look at it, even if you go to a big time program like Wisconsin or Gonzaga, you can go other places and still be successful. Or you could start out at Colorado State, pit stop in Missouri, find your home, and also find your home in Wisconsin under the radar and make the most of your opportunity. And then now you're able to go to the NBA and get drafted. And nowhere did people think that Tanji would get drafted. Considering that, where his stint at Missouri, which was only by just a little bit of a freak injury. And then in Wisconsin, it was like, all right, he's at Wisconsin, we'll give you a shot. And then not only that, he became their number one option very early in the season, and then obviously expanded on it. And it all started from what they were able to do at the college level or at the high school level, which still people are still talking about that 3-year run of the Bellevue West in Miller North, and even probably 5-year run, really, because it really boiled over until here recently. Everybody was surprised. Bellevue West made the state championship that we covered this year with 1 senior, Robbie Garcia, and 4 freshmen. So what do you think about Bellevue West, right? New coach. He wins it 2 years ago, state championship, first year there, replacing a legend. Yeah. Now he's retooling. So I think it's going to be rinse and repeat at the high school level. But those guys are able to get a shot. I think it bodes well. And then obviously Bryce is able to go to Detroit, which I think is a good fit for him, right? They need a kind of mid-level scorer as long as he develops defensively, and he's going to get plenty of opportunity because they need legitimate, I would say, 15 to 3-point range scorer, and that's what he can do. So the pressure isn't on him to come in and be the number one option. Yeah. Also, I think playing behind Cade Cunningham or playing alongside or seeing him play will help him be that point guard that he talked about he wanted to be 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament.
This is going away from Nebraska thing, but you said something about the number one option and Cooper Flagg. You look at Cooper Flagg's situation that he's going into in Dallas. It's different than a lot of number one overall picks because he's not going to be the number one option. He's going to be heavily involved, sure, but Anthony Davis is still there. Kyrie Irving just re-signed and restructured his contract. Clay is still there. Yeah. Cooper Flagg there's going to be pressure on him like there is with every number one overall draft pick. There's going to be the glitz and the glam. but it's not going to be the pressure that we see normally for number one picks.
Right, and he's going to a good team.
Yeah.
And I know obviously the organization is a little bit, on a little bit uneven ground with the change in ownership and change of control, but the talent is there. And obviously Nico's still there after the big trade, but Kyrie comes back healthy along with Clay, Anthony Davis, and all their, I'll call them nuts and bolts pieces that made them one of the best defensive teams when they made that NBA championship run. And then you throw in Cooper Flag in there where he might eventually be the face of the franchise, and he might be right now just because he's the number one pick. But then also you have guys around him that have been through this process. What it's going to allow him to do is go along this process of living up to the unrealistic expectations and the comparisons at a really steady rate. And then when he is able to take over, he will be both physically and mentally mature enough to handle it. And the best thing about it, though, Nick, is that when you think about, Cooper Flag to come in and be maybe the third or fourth option, right? It's kind of like when, the San Antonio Spurs had David Robinson, Greg Popovich, and they get Tim Duncan. Yeah. Then they get Tony Parker. Then they bring in some, different guys, Boris Diaw and all those guys. And
I threw the name Tiago Splitter out there the other day on the show.
Yeah. What it allows them to do is mature. You have guys around them that have been through it, and also they're trying to create a really, really good team. And I think it's a drastic change than what we've seen from the Anthony Bennett's, where you get drafted by Cleveland. You got bad ownership that doesn't want to be there. They're still reeling from LeBron leaving, and you have no talent around you, right? Yeah. Very rarely do you have a Michael Jordan, LeBron, where you're able to essentially carry teams to the playoffs and to the NBA Finals. Now teams are trying to be more strategic, right? You got to think when Joel Embiid goes to the Philadelphia 76ers, no help, but they have to wait for him, right? Now they're saying, we get these guys number one or lottery picks. Let's surround them with really good players and let them mature at a good rate so we get the best out of them and hopefully are able to retain them when it comes that time for them to hit their, mid-max or super-max contract.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And staying with Duke real quick, I mean, you talk about the ability, the recruiting pitch to now guys, and not that Duke had to struggle to recruit by any means, but now for John Shire, who's obviously still replacing the legend in Coach K, for him to be able now to go into homes and say our entire starting five got drafted last year, that's just an advantage that no other team has really ever had.
No, right, and including Coach K.
Yeah.
And also Coach K is still around, so you also have the Godfather there that you handpicked his predecessor who had a really good team this year, and really, to be honest with you, just ran out of gas against Florida. You know what I mean? And because I thought that they were probably going to win a national championship with a bunch of freshmen, highly recruited guys. And then also, I think it also gives him a lot of credit on how to put together a team. You got to think you have the Slim Reaper, who's probably the best pound for pound scorer on their team, coming off the bench, who's going to be starting this year. So you're able to get guys to come to Duke and understand that we got 5 guys going to the NBA. And let's not forget Gillis coming from Purdue down there as a kind of situational piece. And here's what happens when you kind of go through our program. Everybody's going to get picked, and I'm going to make sure I put you in the position development-wise to do so. Because very easily Evans could have left, and he would have been probably the highest guy or one of the highest-ranked guys in the transfer portal. He chose to stay because why? He saw those guys getting drafted. More importantly, it's probably a little bit more detailed and structured version of what John Calipari used to do at Kentucky and is now doing at Arkansas. And it worked out well for Kentucky. They were able they won one national championship, but they had a ton of number one picks and a ton of guys drafted in the NBA. But where you have 5 guys in this day and time of high school guys looking to go places and just get theirs and just use the college season as practice to get ready for the NBA, all 5 of them drafted. That's a big feather in the cap for John Shire.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. We are about an hour and 20 minutes or so away from first pitch between the Salt Dogs and the Red Hawks of Fargo Moorhead. It's going to be you and Strick were talking about it as the sun sets behind the press box and stuff that we're sitting in. It's going to be a beautiful night for baseball. Fireworks on Friday night. It's going to be a great night.
I think when I've been to a couple Salt Dogs games. You know what the coolest thing is, and it's probably something simple, is when they put the speed of the pitches. And that's just something, because you always wonder what it is and all that. And so it's a very, very affordable experience. It's obviously really, really good baseball. But then also it's a good time too. And I will say this is a beautiful park, and it's also when you come off the highway and look, and you got professional baseball played right here in Lincoln, man. You got to think it's a pretty special night.
Yeah, we're pretty spoiled driving into Lincoln and downtown from the north. It's pretty cool to see. Obviously, Bowling Stadium is a little farther north, but then now if you're coming from the airport specifically, you have the youth complex.
And that's awesome.
Our Sandhills Global and everybody there did an incredible job with that. And that has been used so much already in the first year of it. And there's so many cool things that are coming down the road that Nebraska Westland's involved in there. You have Bowling Stadium. But as you continue to drive in, over on the left side, it's Bob Devaney Sports Center way out to the left. Down here, it's Bowling and Haymarket Park and Hawksfield, then Memorial Stadium, and then PBA. It's just bang, 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 one thing after another.
Yeah, you talk about, football recruits coming in. They look for that as well. The misconception is Lincoln is just a country town. I'm telling you, when you pull in right here, it's a legitimate city, and obviously that's why the sports are so, prevalent around here and really, really supported. So we encourage everybody to come out, check out the Salt Dogs. Jay Foreman, Nick Sainer, Old School to New School Way. We're going to take a quick break and be right back.
Watch Old School live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. Old School with Foreman and Orman on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Raising Cane's is the only fuel I need. Their chicken fingers always fill my tank. So when I'm running on fumes, I always refuel at Raising Cane's. But turns out, not everything's fueled by Cane's. Guess the old girl prefers her sauce unleaded. One love.
Take control of your health with the DASH scan at Advanced Medical Imaging. The DASH scan is a full-body MRI designed for advanced health screening. This dynamic approach provides exceptionally sharp images across multiple organ systems, helping to detect potential concerns early. With minimal radiation and no invasive procedures, the DASH scan offers a safe, comprehensive look at your health. Plus, results are delivered faster than ever, giving both patients and physicians confidence in screening and diagnosis. Your health is too important to wait. Schedule your DASH scan today at Advanced Medical Imaging. Visit amimaging.com or call 402-484-6677 to learn more.
Nebco is hiring CDL drivers for ready-mixed concrete in Lincoln. With 3 plants across the city, there are plenty of opportunities to start or grow your driving career. They offer great pay, medical and retirement benefits, paid time off, and they cover the cost of CDL training. Apply today and receive a $2,500 hiring bonus. Since 1908, it's the employees that have formed the company's solid foundation. Start your career today with ready-mixed concrete. Visit nebcoinc.com. That's nebcoinc.com.
Husker fans, the 2025 Nebraska football season is right around the corner, and we need your support in the Sea of Red at Memorial Stadium this fall. You can now purchase a Husker football 3-game mini plan for only $185. This plan includes a ticket to USC plus Akron or Houston Christian and either Michigan State, Northwestern, or Iowa. Tickets are only available while supplies last. Purchase your Husker football 3-game mini plan today, or for more information, visit huskers.com/tickets. Go Big Red.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Make your move fun and easy with the help of Movers and Shakers. Movers and Shakers is homegrown, female-led, and ready to help make your transition to a new space as seamless as possible. They excel at residential and commercial moving jobs, as well as offer home cleanouts and junk removal services. Moving into a new place is stressful enough, so let Movers and Shakers ease the transition. Give them a call today at 712-899-6265 or book your move online at www.moversandShakersNE.com today.
93.7 The Ticket is your home for every Kansas City Royals baseball game. Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, Vinny Pasquantino, and the rest of the Royals attempt to make the postseason for the second season in a row. And you can hear all the action on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Your home for Kansas City Royals baseball.
Don't wait for Lincoln's fireworks stands to open up. Get the good stuff at Roca Crazy Cracker in downtown Roca. Stop in from June 25th through July 4th for the hot spot for rockets and more this Independence Day. Open 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day. It's Roca Crazy Cracker Fireworks in downtown Roca.
Back to Old School with Foreman and Orman on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
What up, Jay Foreman, Nick Sainert? Once again, we are live down here about an hour and 15 minutes away from the Salt Dogs against the Red Hawks. It's another beautiful night. It's 5:50, right? First pitch is at 7. Two really good segments. We covered, obviously, Nebraska recruiting, and then obviously a little NBA news with the local flavor and what that means, and moving forward, what that means for, local sports, but then also these young men moving forward. So, Nick, I want to ask you an honest question, since this is in your wheelhouse, an NFL question.
Okay.
Big Ben Roethlisberger, he said, and I do understand what he's saying. He said, prime Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back MVP.
09, it was
that run.
09,
right? Super Bowl champ, a couple years before Super Bowl championship, and then obviously always through the double MVPs, is better than Patrick Mahomes right now in his run.
Ooh. From an individual standpoint, maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, team can't, but yeah.
Ooh. That's hard. I was asking, okay, let me answer a question with a question. How much has all the off the field stuff with Aaron Rodgers the last couple of years
probably tainted it?
His entire career and how we view him.
Yeah, I wouldn't say his entire career, but that's at the forefront right now. I think Aaron Rodgers is a guy. Look, he had a bad year last year. I think he threw for 3,600 yards, 28 touchdowns, and like 10 interceptions.
Yeah.
That's a great year for Chase Daniels, Jameis Winston, and all that. They're right, or Andy Dalton, all those guys. I mean, they're or Sam or Darnold. They're getting $50 million from it. So, I tend to think individually, Aaron Rodgers and that peak is one of the better runs ever. It's kind of like Tom Brady in his run. Obviously, Tom Brady was really good all 20 years, and so I understand where Big Ben is coming from. They play, and I think also you can do a better comparison of it because they play the same.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? The peak Aaron Rodgers and the ability to run when you need it, the ability to throw, make some crazy, pinpoint accuracy, deep throws, and just every week was just putting on a show. Along with Patrick Mahomes, I think the game has drastically changed that favors quarterbacks, but I can see it. I will say this, and I want your opinion before we, sign off today. I just think Aaron Rodgers, the more he's kind of gotten involved with the social media and then the offseason stuff, you got to think it started in Green Bay. He took the max that year that forced them to break up, him and Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Then he goes to New York, and it took so long because he was in hibernation. So for the last 3 years, and that's after an MVP year, has kind of been all offseason stuff. Even though he's been productive, I think that's really clouded his greatness. And I think when you look back on him 5 years after he's done playing, you're like, man, this dude was really, really good.
I think you're right about that. I also think there's a common denominator with quarterbacks and having really, really bad experiences with the New York Jets.
That is true.
I just think I think for the first, I was thinking back to head coaches that they had. Rex Ryan, obviously. Adam Gase was in there as well.
Remember his first press conference?
Yes, where his eyes were just like bugs. They're like bulging out of his head. I just wonder if it's a New York issue.
I think it's a Jets issue.
New York Jets issue.
I think New York is a hard place to play.
Yeah.
It's 10 times harder to play quarterback. I mean, I was on the team with the Giants and saw Elijah and his struggles, but then he was able to find his niche. And I think the Jets have really struggled quarterback-wise to find somebody like the Giants had a franchise quarterback. You have it. And they've been so quick to turn the page on it. You got to think, Geno Smith was there, probably a little immature. Mm-hmm. He gets jettisoned to Seattle and has turned his whole career around. Yeah. And now now we're going to see what happens with Justin Fields and Aaron Glenn.
I was going to say, I think they got it right with Aaron Glenn.
Yep.
I like Aaron Glenn a lot. I also think that they probably just need a quarterback. I use the equivalent of like a Kirk Cousins, not necessarily maybe Kirk Cousins specifically, but somebody that doesn't allow the New York spotlight to really bother them because they don't feed into it. Right. They don't feed into the social media side of things. Somebody that's maybe a little more veteran.
Yeah.
Like just that it's just going to go out there and just be a quarterback.
Well, you got to think the Jets were potentially going to trade for Kirk Cousins, but then he ended up getting hurt.
So now that's why I was going to ask you is what's the outlook for Justin Fields in this situation?
I think
did he learn enough from Tomlin, from Russell in Pittsburgh, through that adverse experience where he started was fine through the first couple of games of the
he was
season.
3-0.
and then gets sat down.
Gets sat down, and then he played well at the end
right.
of the season
That's
and
right.
was willing to play a role. I think I look at Justin Fields as a way more athletic, way more explosive version of Geno Smith.
Okay.
I think he has a head coach that believes in him, and then they paid him like it. And I think he's going to take advantage of his opportunity to start. I think starting out in Chicago was almost a death sentence for him as far as career wise. The perception is that he's not a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't have franchise support. Then he goes to Pittsburgh and really signed when you knew Russell Wilson was going to be a starter. Now I think maybe he learned, but then also you got Aaron Glenn, but then also I think you have Wilson, who he played with. Yeah. You have a really good and a really a complementary set of explosive pieces out there on the edge that's going to make him better. So I think you're going to see the best version of Justin Fields this year versus his last year when he knew he was gone. From when they were going to draft Williams coming out of USC.
Yeah, I think the Mike Tomlin effect will only have a positive effect on Justin Fields. I also don't take the Aaron Rodgers comments regarding leadership in Pittsburgh lightly, because in comparison to where he just came from.
Sure.
Right? That part. Like, remember the whole Joe Douglas saga where he shows up to practice, thought he was fine, ends up getting fired that day, and everybody's like, wait a minute, was he the issue or is the owners?
Well, you got to think Aaron Rodgers, got rid of Robert Saleh, right? Got his boy promoted. Joe Douglas fires his boy, then Aaron Rodgers makes fun of the owner of all people, Woody Johnson's son. That's a great way to get yourself out of there. So, anyways, what's going to get out of here is Jay Foreman, Nick Sainer on Old School. We'll holler at you next week.